All right, all right, all right. Like I always say, peace world. Thanks for pressing play on another Pay Me No Mind sports and entertainment video. Joining me on a live stream, and tonight is a I've been having some special guests on lately, and this guest is no different in what I've been trying to do. So, without further ado, I just want to welcome to the show tonight's guest, Reggie Williams.
What's going on, man?
I appreciate you joining me, man.
It's a pleasure.
Like I said, kind of in working through your team and getting to you, I've been a big fan of of your platform, Ambrosia For Heads. Going back to like 2010, 2011. And then I told you I came back to you guys probably when you were getting into the latter portions of the you guys had started doing the fan driven
AFORHTV?
No, the fan driven
oh, the goats. The finding the goat. Yeah, finding
the groups, yeah. MC and all that type stuff.
Finding the goats.
And I was like, damn, they're really dedicated to the methodology in this
yeah,
and getting to all of this. And then also then just been tuning in, man, and just always respected what you guys were doing on the platform and kind of the more intellectual coverage of hip hop. Always appreciated that.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. If you were tuning in 2010, 2011, you were like super early, right? Because we didn't even get on Facebook until 2011. I was doing it, on like WordPress and Tumblr back in 2010. So that's dope. And you talk about the goats. That first one we did, mushroomed, it became so big that someone actually tried to hack it in the last round. Yeah, somebody tried to hack it. Like, the Tupac fans were going hard, but we caught it and made it a fair fight, and he just barely lost to Eminem, which was crazy.
Got you. I really, I was mainly interested in the greatest group, and I think that came down to like Wu-Tang, A Tribe Called Quest.
Yeah, yep, that's right. That's right.
Wu-Tang pulled it out?
Wu-Tang pulled it out. I figured they would. Eminem surprised me completely. I thought it was going to be Rakim or Jay-Z, but Wu, I knew it was going to be Wu, but I thought ATCQ or Outkast would give him a good fight, But it's too many.
I was pulling for A Tribe Called Quest, honestly. That's what kind of kept me tuned in and watching it as it went through the different rounds and whatnot. I was like, my dudes might pull it out, and they came up a little short.
Yeah, that's my favorite group too.
See, yeah. For those of you that don't know, who tune in to Pay Me No Mind sometimes, my first name is actually Reggie, and so we were just joking before we got on here. I don't run into a lot of Reggies, but he's also a Reggie, as you can tell by his lower third down there. Hey, look, just to kind of get you onto the show, get some familiarity out there, I just wanted to start with a couple of quick hitters. Shout out to my man, the conceited nobody in the building, who just joined us in the chat. Just a couple of quick thoughts. Had to spend a lot of time on these, but I just wanted viewers to know a little bit about you. Some recent projects that you really dug in hip hop.
Wow, I mean, so many. I'll go with MCs. Some recent MCs. So in the last couple of years, I'd say 2 to 4 years. JID,
okay,
I'm a big fan of his. Reason, I'm a big fan of him. YB and Corday. Those are probably my three guys. And even though I don't consider him hip hop, I consider him more soul than hip hop. Anderson .Paak is my guy too over the last 4 or 5 years too. So yeah, those are my tops of recent.
Dope.
And of course Griselda. That goes without saying. Like, started off Conway is always my guy. But Benny the Butcher, man, has been putting in work. That guy, his career has just gone like this over the last like 2 years or so. So yeah, those guys.
Got you. Favorite project in like the last 3 to 6 months?
Last 3 to 6 months, man, that's a tough one. I'm gonna pull up my Spotify playlist while we're talking. We cover so much music all the time, you know, that it's hard to even keep track of. I'll tell you one thing that just dropped was Judas and the Black Messiah. I thought that soundtrack was a throwback to the 90s when soundtracks actually mattered. You know, and I put it up with some of the best one. So that one is like phenomenal to me. I like Static Selector's project. And if we're going 6 months back, I got to give it to Busta. That was my album of the year last year, Extinction Level Event 2, which is, you know, I think it's a classic.
Yeah, I checked out your the talk between you and Jake Payne on that one, and enjoyed the commentary on that quite a bit. And yeah, I thought that was pretty big. I really wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
Grammy, this is, I don't really rock with the Grammys too tough, but based on the field, what's your prediction, or who are you pulling for to pull this out? In Nas's King's Disease, D Smoke, I think that's Black Habits, maybe Freddie Gibbs and Alchemist. What's that? Alfredo.
Yep.
And then Royce the 5'9", the Allegory, and then Jay Electronica, and it was written testimony.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be between Nas and J&J. And if it was just Jay Electronica, it would definitely be Nas. But since Jay-Z is so heavily involved in it, it makes it interesting. We got Jay and Nas like battling out once again, you know. Once again. But I think it's going to be Nas, man. I don't think Nas has won a Grammy to date, and I think you know, a lot of times with the Grammys, it's as much a kind of a career award as it is the individual album. So I could see it. I could see Nas pulling it out, and it's a great album. It's a great album.
Quick aside right there. Where would you rank that in Nas's catalog?
Wow, me personally, it's top 5 for sure. You know, for me, it goes Illmatic, probably Godson. I Am is in there for me as well. Stillmatic is in there. So probably number 5. Or, you know what? Like, it's tough because I also love Life is Good. You know, I thought that was the first true grown man rap album. You know, he's talking about divorce. He's talking about raising kids. So yeah, it's probably top 5, top 6 for me. How about you?
Okay. Right in there. I would have it was written would be in there, probably in my top 3.
Yeah.
Illmatic. Not too much different from what you just said, though.
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised by the album. I wasn't too sure that what Hit Boy was gonna do.
Yeah.
But once I started listening to it, I was like, he got Nas together. You know, he got him together.
He got him together. He got Benny the Butcher together. Like, Hit Boy had a good year last year. And this, you know, this Judas and the Messiah soundtrack, as you know, is executive produced by him. He's had a big 12 months.
Exactly. Speaking of that, that's the leading into my next question was, did 2020 produce, or what was the memorable moment for hip hop that 2020 produced for you?
Wow, the memorable moment for hip hop. I mean,
and it doesn't even have to stick to music.
Wow, man. 2020, what did it produce for hip hop? That's a great question. You know what it did is I think it gave artists time to sit down and kind of focus on the music again. You know, it was quiet really up until lockdown. And lockdown that weekend, I believe the same weekend, that Friday after the 11th. So like the 11th was a Wednesday. I think it was 13th. J&J dropped. And Jay happens to like coincide with disasters too. I don't know if you know that, but like there was that. And then obviously Blueprint dropped on 9/11/01.
Right.
But, you know, I thought that was kind of a healing, like a salve for a lot of people to finally get that Jay Electronica album. And then 2 days later, Childish Gambino dropped. And, you know, after that, it was a flurry. And that leads me to what the highlight was. It was what people did with live streaming. You know, so I'm gonna combine both D Nice, because everyone remembers that night when he crossed 100,000, and Michelle Obama was in there, Will Smith, and just what that did for the country. That was like monumental. And D's a friend of mine, and to see him just like rock it like that was amazing. So that's one. But then also, and then, you know, the proliferation of DJ events that came after that. Lord Finesse has got great, you know, like, you know, Questlove, Ninth Wonder does a lot. It just became a really, really dope thing. But then the second thing is obviously Versus.
Okay.
And, you know, you talk about the GOAT competition we did, you know, Swizz and Tim took that, put it on steroids. I actually think the first one was the Hot 97 joint they did, where you know, the two, it was Swizz versus Just Blaze. And, you know, Swizz dropped that Nas, Jadakiss, Jay-Z, DMX joint that had never been heard before.
Right.
Like, I think that's what kicked it off. But then when they actually did it as a platform, I think that was a true moment for hip hop. That was a culture shifter.
Okay. Just for me, I think the pandemic and the quarantine really made it quiet enough and still enough for me to check out a whole lot of music that I really didn't even know existed and was out there. And once I started stumbling across the Chez Noir As God Intended album, and even the Juno project that she did, I thought that was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And just a couple others around March and April, May, and in that time frame, it just really had the world still enough for even Stove God Cooks was somebody that early on that I probably wouldn't not have checked in with.
Yeah.
Last quick question. Maybe that was it. Oh, most anticipated release for 2021. I know we've had some guys sitting on the sidelines. People keep asking about Kendrick. What did Cole had some singles or something come out? I don't know if people are waiting because they don't know what's going on with the touring and whatnot. But you know, just what's your most anticipated release for this year?
Those are the two for me. You know, somebody said recently, I was watching an interview, they said that Cole was definitely cooking, you know, so I think he's probably coming with something pretty soon. And then Kendrick, Anderson .Paak said he was in the studio too. So I think that's coming. You know, I would love to see a Schoolboy Q project. You know, those three. And then, you know, something I know for certain is coming is the Anderson .Paak, Bruno Mars, Silk Sonic album. That's going to be, I think that's going to be amazing. So how about you?
Yeah, everything that you said there. And I just want to see what Ransom, how he follows up his 2020. I know he has the 7 album coming up in a couple of weeks. Benny is back on people's necks on the 19th, I believe, with Plugs I Met Too. So but other than that,
by Harry Fraud.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do want to check out, obviously, if Kendrick comes back, I'd have to think that would be the biggest moment for 2020.
Is he your favorite MC of the last 10 years?
Wow, that's a tough one, man. Based on the Tribe Called Quest kind of connection with the music and what he's done with incorporating jazz into so much of his music, and then just everything else he's gone on to do, probably. I mean, I can't think of anyone else.
Yeah. You know, we were talking earlier before, and I hope you don't mind that I share this, but you said that you had kind of lost your connection with hip hop for a minute. You know, that's exactly why I started AFH, because, you know, I'd say mid to late 2000s, I was not connected at all. Ross was cool for me, but, you know, I was never the biggest Wayne fan, the biggest Jeezy fan, and a lot of the stuff that was dominating was a lot of the ringtone rap. And I thought I might be done. You know, I was getting to that age, maybe I was aging out, you know. But then the warm-up dropped. Okay. And J. Cole, you know, that mixtape brought me back to hip-hop. You know, I actually was able to tell him that, like, you know, personally, that, you know, he restored my faith in hip-hop. And then I went on a quest, and I started getting inspired by platforms like Nah Right, you know, Two Dope Boys, you know, Rap Radar, you know, predecessors to Ambrosia For Heads. And then I said, you know what? hip hop is still great. It's just that we don't have time to wade through all the junk to get to the good stuff. We need something that separates the junk and only gives you the good food, the ambrosia. And then that's how it came about. I was sitting in a room with a coworker, and I said, "We need ambrosia for heads." And I was like, "I bet that URL isn't taken," you know. so, so I went and registered it. But that was my thing, man. I did it as much for me as I did for anyone else, just so that I could kind of keep my finger on the pulse and find the good hip hop.
Now it's interesting you mentioned that, because we got a couple of people watching us watching the stream right now. But you had a stint at VH1. I think you were maybe on the legal side there. Then you had a stint at MTV for a few years, and then you were over at BET in pretty big, executive positions and whatnot. You can lay those out there if you care to, but I'm just saying, I kind of blamed those platforms for where we went. And then on the side, and kind of reading when your sign off from last year, when you said that the change was coming for Ambrosia for Heads.
Yeah.
And you said you were doing your day jobs, your day roles, and then on the side you started Ambrosia, and that's just kind of dope to me that you were able to, give the networks what they needed, but then you went and did your own thing, which was more what we needed.
Well, it was interesting because I started AFH just before I went to BET.
Okay.
And this is like 2009. But because I was doing AFH, I had my ear to the street in a way that no one else in the building did, And so I was up on the Kendricks, the Coles, the Logics, the Sahis, all these artists, Chance, Gambino, all these guys before anyone else in the building. And because of that, I was able to feed them over into ciphers. And so if you go back and look at the ciphers from like 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, 14, I had a hand in a lot of those. Jesse Collins, who produced it for us, obviously did too. But I was able to guide a lot of ciphers. And then the critical thing for me was the back room. So 106 in Park relaunched what was kind of like the 2010s version of the booth, for Rap City,
right?
And so the back room was nothing but spitters. And you talk about Chez Noir. I had Apollo Brown and Rascass in that. I had Slaughterhouse. I had every spitter who came up from like 2010 to 2014. Got their first shot on BT virtually through the back room through me, all TDE, the whole nine. And so I was able to kind of meld the two worlds. I was very diligent about keeping them separate because I never wanted anyone to think that I was leveraging the BT platform for my own personal gain. In fact, it was the opposite way. I was feeding people. I had a pretty significant hand in Kendrick's career the first few years, all the TDE guys, so I hope that came through with the BET stuff too. The other thing that I worked on really closely was battle rap, if you remember, got really exciting around 2013, 2014. Smack URL was at the kind of top of its game. And so I said, you know what, we need to redo Freestyle Friday. Let's do a partnership with Smack. So I did a partnership with Smack, and we came up with Ultimate Freestyle Friday. And so if you looked at those last, several months of 106 in Park, the battles that Bow Wow hosted were crazy. So I'd like to think that it seeped into the day job too,
That's pretty dope, man, because I think one thing that I also have been monitoring and observing the last few years is it seems like we're at a stage where brothers are figuring out, if you can't play the game, you can be involved on the sidelines. And I'm seeing, some brothers getting involved with the front office in the NFL, the front office of the NBA, and so on and so forth. And then here you are over here on this entertainment side, coming from Evansville, I believe, Indiana, right?
Yep, that's right. That's right.
And you go off to Harvard couple degrees there, philosophy and law school. And then, you know, you get into this business and you are affecting you're affecting this culture that we love in the manner that you just laid out, that I wasn't even aware of that.
Yeah, man. And you know, the wild thing is, growing up in Indiana, I never ever thought that was a possibility. You know, I was the dude who, you know, went home and was watching MTV and BET as soon as I got home for like 10 hours. Like that was my thing, you know. And I was the guy who spent his allowance on a cassette every single Friday. You know, I didn't even know music came out on Tuesdays. Like I got my allowance on Fridays. So that was the day to go buy music, you know. So it wasn't until I got to college that I started to even like think, man, this is maybe something I could pursue as a career. So for me, like being able to do something that is my passion and be paid for it is just that's the best of all worlds. So it's a privilege, man, and I don't take it for granted.
So with the launch of Ambrosia For Heads, and I was laughing to myself last night because it's kind of a name that I would choose that I don't think anybody would really get it. I mean, look at Pay Me No Mind. I don't think anybody really. It's not the dopest YouTube channel name, but it does have a purpose. And when I stumbled across Ambrosia For Heads, I was like, what the hell is this? And you know, it was DX was out there and all hip hop, the stuff that Rap Radar, the alliteration and stuff, the easy stuff. And then, like I said, I stumbled across Ambrosia For Heads, and I was like, man, I really like the content. I like the presentation, and I like the thought that's behind all of this. So I just kind of gravitated towards it. But just kind of, can you just summarize what you guys were able to accomplish over there, over the last decade or so?
Yeah, man.
It's a lot.
First of all, thank you. You know, I appreciate the words. It always means a lot when a person gets the concept and like really like, understands what we're trying to do. You know, for me, like I said, there was too much stuff out there. We're all overwhelmed by content. And so we needed a trusted filter. And I thought of it like, going back to those record store days, if you went to the same record store, eventually you got the plug there, right? There's a dude there. He knows your taste. He's going to hold something for you. He might give you the store discount. Like, that person was a trusted resource. And so we wanted to become that in the digital age, in a time when people didn't have that. So that was a big part of it. But then also because of my TV background, I had seen how TV networks were built. And even though Ambrosia For Heads has meaning, it's a mouthful. And so I always co-branded it as AFH. And for me, those were call letters because I was always building toward a TV platform. And not the old school, like, turn on the TV, hit a cable channel TV, but really the streaming service that's coming up now. I was thinking about those things back in like 2004, 2005, and so with AFH, I figured there was going to come a time where I could have my app live next to ESPN, live next to HBO, live next to whatever other app there was, and have it be that TV platform. So that was the main goal, and it started as an idea from my head, me doing a Tumblr, and the other key thing is that everyone was calling hip hop a young person's game. I actually interviewed Benny, and one of the questions I asked him was like, you got your start in your 30s, what do you say to people who think rap is a young man's game? He said, nah, man, rap is a grown man's game. Like, you got to have this game, you got to have this wisdom. People 25 and older love hip hop, but they don't have the time, right? Or the desire to go through the nonsense. And so I built what I believe is the first hip hop platform to speak to people 25 and older, and so taking that idea it was a test, trying to figure out whether or not it was going to resonate. And for the first 6 months or so, I was blogging to basically myself and family and friends. Like I got maybe 30 visits a month, and I couldn't tell if those were unique or not. 25 of those might have been me, but it was about honing the voice, honing the craft, and getting to a place where I could do it regularly, consistently, and of quality. Then we launched the Facebook and started to build on it. And, first month we have 500 Facebook followers. The second month we had 1,200, and I was like, oh, this is scary. Every time I push the button, it's going to 1,200 people. Like, I was nervous, like, but then I, calmed down, and then was never nervous about it since. But I did have a method to it. So I never wanted to be that platform that's speaking to you from on high. Like I said, I wanted to be that dude that, your friend who like you go to for mixtapes and whatever. And so I met a dude at a conference who was like sweet spot for my demographic. It was like, young 30s, was loved like Uptown and So Def and all that stuff, but also was down with like super like underground hip hop and everything too. And I said, you know what? Every time I post, I'm gonna pretend like I'm just texting him. You know what I mean? Like, just so I could make it personal, make it feel like I'm speaking directly to you instead of at you. And over time, it was a grind, man, post by post, and 1,500 went to, a couple thousand to 10,000 to 20,000. Now we're like, almost 450,000 on Facebook. At our peak, we were at around 15 million. We're reaching 15 million people a month through our site and socials. I launched AFORH TV. I had Ralph McDaniels be a part of that because I wanted to give back to the founders. He had phenomenal footage, so I've been very intentional about building it into a full-fledged media company. That's what I wanted it to be.
Got you. Question, like I said, from the Conceited Nobody, and I appreciate you tuning in tonight, Latours. But he asked top 5 ever MCs, and I warn you, I know Latour, so it's a loaded question.
Man, it can change on any day. For me right now, today, I'm going to say Jay-Z, Andre 3000, Ice Cube, Tupac, and here's where I'm going to inflame everybody, because Rakim should be in there, right? He definitely should be in there. He should be in there, and like I could sub him, any of those MCs out for him, and maybe I will. But the 5th for me is going to be Kendrick.
Okay.
And for me, there's only 2 MCs who have ever had arguably 4 classic albums. One is Jay-Z, the other is Kendrick. So that's it. That's it for me. How about you?
I knew you was gonna do that, man, and I'm really not prepared. I'm really not prepared to throw those out there. Let me simmer on that for a minute. But what I did want to get to,
thank you, Conceited Nobody. Shout out. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Threw me off a little bit. Where was I going? Oh, I listened to you on this Protege podcast with you and another Harvard alum and Rory Verrett.
Yeah, that was my classmate.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Dope podcast. I enjoyed it. But you came out and kind of really spoke to your fondness for Jay-Z and why you gravitate towards his music. And definitely one question that I did want to get to was, how do you you're in more corporate America than me. I'm levels below you. How do you listen to some of this stuff, the harder stuff? You mentioned Griselda. How does that work for you in like taking it in and applying it to and you're also, I think you're married right now, right?
No, I'm not.
I'm married.
No.
You were married. I know you're a father.
Yep. Of three boys. Yep.
3 boys. As you've matured and aged and whatnot, how do you stay so tapped in with these guys?
Yeah, well, first of all,
especially when not everybody is evolving the way that Jay-Z has, he's kind of evolved with his content. How do you stay, attuned with it?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you've done your research, so thank you. That's always like, is always impressive and refreshing. For me, the other thing that I didn't mention is so when I talk about hip hop for people, 25 and older, what that means is a few things. Musically, I think it's got to have some there's got to be some music in it, right? A lot of, and you know, it's ironic because a lot of the trap that was coming out maybe 2011, 2012, I won't name names, but you know, didn't really reach me because I didn't feel it to be that melodic. It wasn't, you know, and there wasn't a ton of lyricism. But if you go back to when I first got introduced to hip hop, you know, when I was growing up, like the stuff I loved was very much just beats and rhymes. You know, Rick Rubin, his whole style was beats, rhymes, and scratches. You know, so all that LL stuff, a lot of the Run DMC stuff, and in some ways, I had to come back and recalibrate and say, you know what, like a lot of that stuff was kind of going back to the beats and rhymes. It's just that the drawn out 808 wasn't my thing. But the other thing for me is having some sort of content. Your lyrical content has to be, and you don't have to be the most, you know, fantastic, you know, multi-syllabic dude who's like, you know, like just doing like acrobats around everyone. Because, you know, that stuff back in the day was very, like Melly Mel is one of my favorite MCs and is a very basic rhyme style. But your content has to be something that is inspiring to me, you know. And so that's what I aspire to do with 25 and older. So to get back to your question, you know, I think a lot of us are perpetually on the grind. No matter what like levels we reach, we're still hungry trying to like reach that next level. And you hear a lot of that hunger in Griselda's music, you know, and you see it in the grind that they built. You listen to early Jay, it was all about that grind, all about building. And now that he's matured, he's trying to pass it back and like giving people advice about like wealth building and like, you know, buying investment and assets and investments and things like that, appreciating goods instead of spending it on, you know, stuff that's going to devalue. And so I find that amazing. That's why I love Cole. That's why I love Kendrick. That's why I love JID, like all those guys that I named. And so for me, it keeps me fresh, you know, mentally, keeps me agile. I find inspiration in all sorts of things, you know, and so, and I just love music. So it's a pleasure for me. It's not a grind, you know, and then with the job, you know, with the AFH gig, I got to stay tapped in. So, you know, we do that too.
Got you. And I think that's where it is different for me is like, sometimes I'm sitting at my desk and the stuff that I'm sitting here listening to Griselda with like 12 rural people, you know, from rural backgrounds. And it's just a weird juxtaposition from time to time on what's going on at my desk in my head and, you know, the other 10 people around me. Like I said, you've been at the stops that you've had in your career. It wasn't that much of a difference in the vibe of everybody, I could imagine.
Well, I mean, also, like, you got to think, you know, a lot of people read war strategy books for, you know, how to get ahead in corporate America. So Sun Tzu and, you know, Machiavelli's The Prince and things like that. And, you know, it's sometimes that you get those kind of same kind of strategies from hip hop too. So, you know, the corporate world is a tough world, you know, so, you know, it fortifies you sometimes.
Got you. What's up to CJ? Good fella. Sports TV is in the building. Big channel, boxing, sports, and some hip hop. He wants to know top 5 favorite rap groups. You gave
Yes,
already.
same qualifier. It could change on any day, but you know, what comes to mind for me is A Tribe Called Quest, Outkast, The Roots, Public Enemy. Wow. And did I say Gangstar yet?
Not yet.
So probably Gangstar, you know. And, you know, Wu could be in there. You know, NWA could be in there for me. You know, but those 5 I named are probably the ones that I listen to the most, that have had the most impact on me.
Any disappointment in the disappearance of the group, the hip hop group?
Well, I think Griselda has kind of brought that
in
back.
The traditional form.
Yeah, traditional form is disappeared, and it's morphed into collectives. You know, so you got like Griselda, you had MMG, you got TDE, you got Dreamville, you got a lot of people who are collectives So I think that that's kind of the evolution of the group. Um, and I can't be mad though at, you know, people not being in groups, because I think that it's probably motivated largely by economics. You know, and it's hard to split money like 5 ways, 2 ways, 3 ways, 9 ways. So if dudes want to go out and do their independent thing and then come back together, like, you know, Talib and Mos Def do, or, you know, Yassine, then I can't be mad at that, you know.
Gotcha. Another very important question that I need to get other guests on and other voices on sometimes to help with what I am trying to talk about with hip hop. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on why some of the guys that you mentioned, Tribe Called Quest, leaders of the new school, De La Soul, some of these guys that had more thoughtful lyrics back in the day. They were more carefree, maybe even a little nerdy, hippie with De La Soul and whatnot. The stuff that Prince Paul was doing. I mean, what do you think has caused us to kind of lose that type of MC coming out of New York? I thought that was such a seminal figure, and it helped shape me in a lot of ways. And those, it seems like now you can listen to 30 or 40 guys out of New York, and it's all very close to the drug rap or coke rap, as they're calling it.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I think that just in general, New York, until recently, you know, I think there's been a resurgence in the last 3 or 4 years, or maybe it started back in, you know, the early 2010s with ASAP. I think they kind of really put New York on their back and started bringing it back. But I think that there's just been a dearth of MCs from New York generally. You know, it's been run by Atlanta, it's been run by LA. You know, I think Griselda's stepping up. Chicago's had like a long run. And so I think part of it's a probability issue, you know, just like there are definitely those kind of MCs around. We've talked about a lot of them, you know, but, you know, if you looked at each of them, they're probably one or two out of the, you know, 50 MCs in their regions as well. You know, they're departing. I do think that New York rapper is going to come back, you know, in a lot of ways. You know, even though he's from North Carolina, Cole feels like a New York MC, you know. And you know, he's got deep New York roots. I think it'll come back, and also Jay hasn't like been ready to like, you know, like give it up so easily, and Nas either. You know, those guys are still very vaunted New York MCs who are putting out phenomenal work. You know, we talked about it. Nas might win a Grammy. Jay is, I think, 444 is one of his best albums. His work on Jay Electronica's album is phenomenal. Jay Electronica, you know, is a New Orleans MC, but feels like a New York MC. So, you know, I think the New York style is still there. I think there are a few people who just got to dig a little bit. Yeah.
I mentioned in the email that I sent you, you know, there's guys out there like Astro. I don't know if you're that familiar with him.
I put him on. I put him in the cipher, and I put him on 106 and Park. Stroh's my guy. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, do you think? I mean, he's got one or two releases out already.
Well, he got a bunch. He's got a bunch of mixtapes, a bunch of albums. Stroh's got probably like 10 projects out. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just like you said, there's a Cole, there's a Kendrick. Common is still kind of repping for Chicago, Kanye a little bit, some other guys in the Shy, and I'm just wondering, can we get that new big voice out of New York that brings the musical, just even the production, like you said with Kendrick, how he's being innovative in you know, pushing the sound that he brings with him. I'm just looking for that type of figure. And like you said, right now it's kind of all stuck in what Griselda has kind of started.
Yeah. I mean, they're from Buffalo, but they feel as New York as any group has felt in decades, you know. You know, Pop Smoke, you know, rest in peace, was making noise too. I think he was about to blow, you know. So yeah, but I think it's coming. It'll be back. It'll be back. The other thing is that somewhere along the lines, New York stopped being a leader and started following, and so you got a lot of guys mimicking sounds out of Atlanta and other regions. But I think it's about time for that guy, that woman or man to come out and kind of run things in New York.
Gotcha. Do you think that, so I'm 45, I think you're right there with me age wise. Do you think that, and I think you touched on it earlier in part of your response, did maybe 30 to 50, that age group in there, maybe even 55, did we quit kind of showing up and supporting hip hop in a way, maybe not putting our dollars behind it as well, maybe not attending concerts locally? I don't know. Have we kind of gotten away from hip hop, and that's why? And I know it's a young person's game, in a way, but like your friends that you have that aren't involved in the industry, can you talk to music about with them regularly anymore, or did that disappear in your life?
Yeah, I can. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, and it spans, it's a wide range too. Like, you know, I can talk to them all about the so-called legacy groups, right? So if Wu goes on tour, the Roots go on tour, you know, Jay, Nas, and artists like that, they're going to show up for sure, you know, and, you know, people like Rock the Bells and, you know, we'll go to other festivals to see those kind of artists for sure. I also have a fair amount of people who, you know, still going to the club. So they're, you know, they're loving Migos and like, you know, the baby and Lil Baby and like, you know, all these guys who are more popular now, and they're well versed in it. But I would say the average person between 30 and 50 is either looking for stuff from the legacy groups that they grew up with, so new things, or else people who kind of have that ethos. And that's also part of what the formula was for AFH. Was, you mentioned it before, Kendrick, you mentioned the Tribe Called Quest sound that he kind of tapped into in the jazz. I would say he also tapped into that Andre 3000, like that harmonies. You listen to like, you know, Don't Kill My Vibe. That's a very much an Andre 3000 kind of vocal and harmony and stuff like that. You know, Griselda straight out of like, you know, Wu and like Cool G Rap and like, you know, guys of that ethos. And so a lot of the people that we showcase of the younger generation were still kind of throwback a little bit in their sound, and everything is cyclical too, you know. So yeah, I think, and you know, I think it's a falsehood that that the non-lyrical rap is the most popular. I think if you start to look at it in terms of songs, yeah, there are lots of songs that are like that, and they come and go, and those artists come and go every couple of years or so. But if you think about the artists of the last 10 years who have had 2, 3 albums or more, and who have had longevity, it's Cole, it's Kendrick, it's Logic, it's Drake, it's Big Sean, it's, you know, those kind of artists who do focus much more on musicality and lyricism that have been enduring.
Gotcha. Last question on this first half of this. I'm gonna stop this, the audio that I'm recording. And forgot my damn question. That's not a good look. So, well, I guess just to close out 2020. I know another important question that I wanted to get out there. You've been through it when we had self-destruction, all in the same gang. We just went through a lot of stuff in 2020, still, you know, going through some things here in 2021. Just what was your reaction to how hip hop just kind of existed during that moment? We didn't see any kind of unified statements. You know, we did get the front lines joint from Conway, who, you know, was pretty overt with his thoughts on it, but we didn't get a whole lot. How do you think hip hop kind of handled? How did they show up in this really challenging time?
Yeah, you know, I think they showed up in real life. You know, you had people like Kendrick, you had people like Cole, you had a lot of artists on the front lines at marches protesting. and a lot of them consciously said, I don't think it's a time for my music. I think it's time for me to be out and like actually showing my support, like in real life. This is bigger than the music. I thought that was powerful. I thought that was very powerful. You got people behind the scenes giving tons of money, chance to rappers, giving money to schools, and really trying to set long-term solutions to these problems. I think that they showed up in a big way. They just showed up in a different way.
That's dope. That's dope. I'm gonna take this quick break. It's really not gonna be much of a break, but I just want to stop this recording real quick. All right. Getting back to the second part of it, with the way that Griselda's come back and brought New York back, and I don't know if it's even really happened through record sales per se, because that part of it is a little odd right now with so much streaming. But just what's your thoughts on how they did this without the major labels involved? We've seen the East come back, with Def Jam and some of the other labels that were over there, Elektra, whatever, or Columbia. But these guys just did this just grinding. And I know in the past we've heard, titles of A&Rs and whatnot, and how they worked with a Tribe Called Quest and different guys to shape a lot of what we got in the 90s and early 2000s. But it just seems like Griselda is all in-house, and they just figured this stuff out.
Yeah, well, I think a few things. I think first of all, and we were able to, I've interviewed Benny, myself, and we interviewed Griselda together, and we asked them about their grind. I think that Westside Gunn is a marketing genius and a real strategist when it comes to this. He kind of bucked the system, and instead of going for scarcity, he went for like just feeding the machine as much as he possibly could. He was thematic in his approach, having series of albums. His tone was different. I had a conversation with Kanye West once, not to drop names, but like we were talking about a certain frequency, and hip hop needs that high frequency. There's always that person, going back to like MC Shy-D, to Eazy-E, to Meek Mill, even to and Gunn is that frequency, and so he tapped into that as well. And then just repping his city, and it's a new city that most people had never heard about, and so he was just very visionary and thoughtful in his approach. And then surrounding himself, and then the story too, just like what Conway's gone through, they've all really been through it, and so I think the authenticity resonated with people as well. But I will say that, and this takes nothing away from their grind, because their grind was like unparalleled, and without their grind they wouldn't have gotten to the stage. But I went to A3C back in, I think it was 2017, and I saw them perform, and it was in a little bar, and maybe it was like 25 people, right? The next year I go, and they're on the main stage. It's an afternoon show, and I think that's the year that Wu performed. It's an afternoon show, but unlike any other A3C I'd been to, it was packed. And they rocked the entire main stage, and just to see that evolution in a year was insane. But during that year, they had also signed with Shady Records, which is distributed by Interscope. So tapped into the major label system, tapped into the significance of Eminem. I think that's the year they were featured on the BET Hip Hop Awards ciphers, and participated in I think they had their own cipher, and they were also in the background during Eminem's Donald Trump takedown. So they definitely benefited from that too. But and some features with M and stuff like that. But unlike most, they didn't get swallowed up and live in the shadows. They used it to their advantage, maintained their sound, their authenticity, and leveraged it to go to new heights, and now solo again. And I think should never sign with anybody else again, because that grind is theirs to control of their own. So yeah, I think that's it.
Do you have any concerns though? Because they have pumped that frequency, the dark music, between Derringer, Beat Butcher, and Alchemist, and the subject matter itself. Um, any thoughts on just that constantly keeping its listeners in like that emotional range? Just because I was listening
Yeah,
to a podcast a couple of weeks ago where Conway was on, and the host of that podcast was just like, we don't want none of that J. Cole stuff. We don't want none of that Kendrick stuff. And I'm just thinking back in, when I was coming up as a teen listening to hip hop, I listened to a full range of stuff and I changed it up. And now to just see guys just kind of sit here and stay on Griselda, any concerns about that?
well, we'll get into that. But before I get into that, you reminded me of another thing that I think was key to their success. And if you think about labels, that really, really succeeded in the past, a core element that they had was in-house production.
Definitely.
So you look at No Limit with Beats by the Pound, you look at Puffy and Bad Boy and the Hitman, you look at Dre and Death Row, and having that lineup that they do, Derringer, those guys, I think was also critical to their success because there was almost no limit, pun intended, on the capacity of music they could do. They had to pay people, on a per beat basis for that. They couldn't have had that kind of output. So I think that was a big part of the formula too. To your question, I think also we gotta just keep it in perspective that, their movement has really mushroomed over the last 3 years or so. It hasn't been that long a time. And if you go back and look at Jay's body of work, he's still very much in I'm a hustler, I sell dope and that's how I got my money. And he's in that mode for years, right? Really from Reasonable Doubt, at least through the Blueprint. And, probably, even, you find elements of that in the Black Album. And so it's not until when he comes back with Kingdom Come, which was around 2007 or so. So 10 years after Reasonable Doubt, which is, when he was introduced to most of the world, but his grind started, years before that, that he really started to kind of change up subject matter. And he got flack for it. Magna Carta, Holy Grail, he was, killed for that. And, Kingdom Come, he was killed for that. And then 444, he started to people started to come around. And so I try and keep that in perspective with Griselda. These guys are new into their career, and who knows, they could evolve and become like Jay. Even Westside Gunn, his Pray for Paris album, he's talking about fashion runways and he's introducing lots of elements. He's talking in interviews about artwork and graphic design and stuff like that. So he's very much business focused and things like that, and introduces it outside of the music. So who knows whether they're going to go the Jay-Z route or the Pusha T route and just keep it one lane forever. But I don't think that all artists have to say all things. I think that we have different voices to give us different perspectives. And so if you choose not to hear those themes, then you can go to JID, you can go to Rhapsody, you can go to Reason, you can go to, other artists for those perspectives. And so, for them, I say just do what's true to them, and I make no judgments.
Got you. The Conceited Nobody earlier asked, how do you feel about the current crop of female rappers?
Yeah, I think that this is the best time ever for women rappers. I've been a big proponent and supporter of Rhapsodies for many years. She's another person I helped to get on BET quite a bit. I did one of the first ever AFH interviews with her back in 2010. Super, super dope. Love her. You mentioned Shade Noir, incredible. You got No Name, you got Lyric Jones, and then you got Cyrock. And then you have Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi, and Nicki's still around. And I don't know that there's ever been a time when has been more women MCs, but also more diverse women MCs. And so I think it's a golden age. One
of the questions, we can stay there real quick, that I had for you was, do you think that it's, for for them to kind of, do you think we've had, like you said, it's been cyclical. We've had the females come in and rock for, a year or two, maybe 3, and then disappear. Do you think this group has staying power? And then also, I don't know, as a fan or just from the business side of it, for them to take a step forward, do you think they need to start having the features the same way the guys had the features? We'll see Jay-Z pop up on a remix of Just to Get By, or we saw Puffy go and take a beat from Black Star and put some street dudes on it or something. But it just seems like we don't see the women kind of jumping on each other's tracks the way that the men do.
I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, you got WAP was one of the biggest records of the year last year, between Megan and Cardi. And, they've shown a ton of solidarity with one another. I think, so about staying power, I worked on a documentary when I was at BET called My Mic Sounds Nice. It was in 2009, 2010, done by a then unknown director named Ava DuVernay. Who had just done a documentary about a spot in LA called The Good Life, and I think it's in Crenshaw, and it was a spot where Freestyle Fellowship and a lot of like the West Coast artists of that side kind of like did their thing. We found Ava, she just shot the hell out of that. It's such a gorgeous documentary, but it was really about the disappearance of women MCs, because if you think about it, then this is just as Nicki was starting to bubble, but there had not been really any, very popular women MCs for years. Like it's probably since Missy, so 7, 8 years had gone by. And then, now you are where we are now. My hope is that, we're at this place now where it will never happen again, where there aren't, significant women MCs. I look at it as like similar to black comedians. It used to be you could only have one mega popular black comedian at a time, and you had Richard Pryor, then you had Eddie Murphy, then you had Martin, then you had but now you have tons and tons. And I just think that's going to be the natural state because demographics are shifting, the public is going to demand it. And so I think the women are going to be around for a long time, and I also think the diversity is going to last too.
Okay, I think that the pairing that I was looking at, like not a Cardi and a Meg, are kind of like usual suspects. Yeah. Will a Young Ma pop up on Rhapsody's album, or will those types of collabs start happening?
Yeah, and I know that Lyric Jones and Rod Digga have worked together, quite a bit. I got to think about some other ones, but I do think that I think they support each other. I know No Name does a lot of work with. She's not a rapper, but I'm blanking on her name. But another Chicago woman artist. Like I think they support. I'll do some digging, but I think it's out there.
Okay. I wanted to get that question in, and it came up a couple of minutes ago, so I wanted to jump to that. But before leaving from Griselda, do you think they already have a classic or two or more in their catalog?
Oh man, it's hard to say. For me, Pray for Paris is one of my favorite albums last year. Like that album was just like so sonically rich and a departure. And it's funny you talk about the dark tones of the music. That one was a more jazzy, soulful, melodic album. And maybe it's why it resonated so much for me. 327, I think it is, the song with Joey Badass and Tyler, the Creator, just like destroys me. They have. I think that Benny, his Burden of Proof, is getting near classic status. I think. It's hard to say, but they have some real like incredible material in their catalog for sure.
Gotcha. I would throw the from King to a God. I did a review of that on here, and
Conway, yeah.
I kind of couldn't say it wasn't a classic. Like I know we don't want to throw classics around nowadays, and then especially since he's put the deluxe version out, I think that puts it over in the classic for me.
Conway is amazing, man. That second A3C show that I saw, like he did this song, and the hook is "This is the realest shit I ever wrote," and like he was almost in tears. It was such a powerful moment, man. I love Conway. Love Conway.
Yeah, and I think Tana Talk 3, just like you said, with business concepts wrapped up in there, and that's a very powerful album, man. I mean, Tana Talk 3 he was in his bag on that one.
And Plugs I Met too. I mean, Plugs I Met. He had Royce, he had Black Thought on that. You know, I mean, that EP was amazing. Yeah.
Another very important question that I want, just from your perspective, and you know, you get to watch this stuff a lot more closer than me, so I'm interested in your thoughts on it. But why do you think, like, the guys from the 80s, you know, mid 80s, late 80s, maybe ending up around the 90s, why do you think some of those guys who were, you know, who are now regarded as the architects and the fathers of this, why do you think it was so difficult to get beyond a fourth album for them? And now we have guys, you know, getting to 14, 15 hip hop albums, but Rakim, not a really deep catalog. Big Daddy Kane, not a really deep catalog. KRS-One, you know, after maybe album 4 or 5, he started losing a little bit of steam. EPMD, after 3 albums, it gets a little. Why do you think now guys can have such deeper, you know, catalogs?
Well, I think a few things. So one, like, you know, people throw around the term one-hit wonder, right? But the reality is that most artists, the vast majority of artists, I'd say probably 95% or more of artists, are incredibly lucky to have one hit, period, right? To get 2 is like, then you're like, it's significant, right? So that's part of it. I think it's the norm. I think I would say the same thing about albums. You know, if you go back and look at the body of work of most artists, just numerically, most artists don't have more than 1 or 2 albums, and certainly not more than 1 or 2 good albums. So for any artist to have 3 or more good albums, I think that that's a great run. And, you know, most of these artists too, if you think about it, their career run is only like 5 years or so. You know, even artists like Madonna, like she had like maybe a 10-year run. Like, you know, LL is like phenomenal. Snoop is, I'd say the LL, Snoop, people like that from the 90s are guys who've got 10, you know, or more like album catalogs and, you know, 15, 20 years in the game. And that's just, they're unicorns. Like, so I think that they are the exception, not the rule. I think now people put out a lot more music, and so it inflates their catalog compared to what people did back in the day when it was like, you know, record contract. It was the only way you could put out music. You were supposed to put out 1 album a year. You know, you got a 7 or 8 year deal, and that was it. Now you got so much independent artists; they have their own distribution. They can just literally put out music whenever they want to. That doesn't necessarily mean they should, because, you know, I do think that you got to exercise quality control to protect your catalog to some degree too. But, you know, I think a lot of it is technology and just the way that the industry has shifted.
Got you. You're over here now, kind of focusing more on the digital side, videos and whatnot. How was that change up going for you? And I'm asking, I guess, because now we have, in my opinion, we mentioned before we went live, you know, with Red back in 2015, 2014. You know, if you can still hear me.
Yeah, I lost you for a second there.
I thought that was like the next evolution. Okay. I thought the Combat Jack show was a precursor in a way that was the next evolution of hip hop, maybe even rap music without rapping. And so now you're over here, you have the Button podcast, Drink Champs, all of this stuff. How do you deal with that? Because, you know, you don't have those personalities at AFH per se. What's your reaction to those guys being over in the space now?
I think it's all about finding your lane. You know, when we started AFH, people were like, dude, you're starting a website in 2010? Like, you know, there's millions. And a hip hop website? Come on, dog, what's going on? But we carved out a unique lane and then, like, you know, found our voice and like stayed true to that voice. You know, I think that's the key to any brand. And on the podcast side, I would say a couple things. I think we try to, especially with interviews, be one of the places that an artist can go and know that they're going to be questioned on a very deep level about the music, you know, about the lyrical content, about the production of the music, stuff like that. Not their dating life, not like, you know, fights in the club, not stuff like that. It's going to be about the music. And so I think that is a kind of a unique lane that we've carved out in the way that we approach that. Also, I think that we do try to take a more just a deeper approach to the subject matter, like we did with like even covering news. So like instead of like talking about the, you know, what, when, where, the quick stuff, and like, you know, trying to get like the clickbait headline, we try and give you some deep analysis of it. You know, the way I used to describe it was, you know, Entertainment Weekly versus Rolling Stone. You could have Entertainment Weekly and Rolling Stone, and they both could have Kendrick Lamar on the cover. But the Entertainment Weekly was dated after a week because it was really just the topical stuff, the surface level stuff, and, you know, it got dated. Whereas the Rolling Stone was a deep profile piece, and you could pick it up 6 months later, even a year later, and even the most like ardent Kendrick fan could learn something new about Kendrick just because of the depth of journalism. We approach podcasting that way too. You know, we dissected in our last episode the acquisition of Tidal by Square, and we started talking about NFTs and like, you know, what the potential cryptocurrency uses could be, and dissecting why Jay liquidated $600 million in assets in 2 weeks, and you know, so we try and like really just go to a deeper level than most, and you know, and make that our differentiator.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I put out, I think I had it up a day or two, and then I noticed you guys did that. I was like, well, let me see how they.
Wait, I missed it. You said
you got into the non-fungible.
I missed it. You said you had what up? What up? Oh, I lost you. You're freezing there for a second.
I was saying I put out my podcast talking through the Jay-Z situation, and then I noticed a day or two later you guys had your video on it, and I'm like, oh well, let me see how they approached it, and you just had a whole lot more heft to the discussion, kind of, and it went in a different direction than me. But I'll say what I noticed on here on YouTube and social media, some people wanted Jay-Z to be failing in those moves, and that it revealed that he's really failing, and you just kind of reported it and kind of laid out what the possibilities were versus, and I think that's kind of where real journalism comes from, and you know, and I think that's what kind of turns me off with some of what I see in social media and us guys in the basement trying to make this stuff happen, is we don't always have that the professionalism that I would like to see.
Yeah, and it's also like economically driven. You know, websites are hurting. You know, the ad rates are going down. A lot of the money is being taken up by like Google and Facebook, and so you have to generate more and more traffic to make the same amount of money, or even less. And that causes people to do like wild, crazy headlines and like, you know, the clickbait and stuff like that. And we just don't try to do that. That's why we got out of the daily updates, because, you know, we saw where it was going, and we wanted to continue to maintain that same kind of integrity. And podcasting does allow you to have that kind of deep dive journalism that we like, you know. But I appreciate you saying that. And Jake Payne, our editor in chief, is a, you know, OG. He worked at like All Hip Hop, and was editor-in-chief of Hip Hop TX before he joined AFH as editor-in-chief, and has written for The Source and Forbes and all sorts of other places. And so he brings a ton of journalistic integrity as well, and that's what we vibe.
I definitely want to, before you get off of here, I definitely want to know, because like when I saw it wasn't like a sign off, but it was a lengthy message that you put out there of what was next to come for Ambrosia for Heads. But then I looked yesterday and you guys still do have articles over there and whatnot. I thought you were moving totally away from that and to doing videos. And that's why I started focusing more on your YouTube content than on the, checking in on the website day to day. So kind of where are we with that? Or where are you with that?
Where we are with that is we generally only post articles about the podcast. Okay. And the podcast is a weekly wrap up. So we do one article per week, and it's covering whatever the biggest stories are of the week, and typically it's the stuff we cover on our podcast. If there's a reason why we can't do a podcast for a week or something like that, then we'll still cover a story just to kind of maintain that weekly cadence. But that's it. Yeah, we moved away from the daily, trying to chase the headline space, and are really trying to be more strategic and analytical about it, and multimedia. So yeah.
So how has it been moving to the videos? Because I was spying a little bit. What do they call it? I can't even think of the word, but keep an eye on the competition basically, and checking out your views, your the live views, how many people are in the chat, how you interact with people who leave comments. I'm kind of sizing you guys up a little bit. I thought one change that I thought, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I thought you guys went back and started adding timestamps to discussion. I don't think that was happening early on.
You're locked in. Yep, that's right.
I keep an eye on it all. So,
yeah.
So what's the what's the first impressions of being over here 6 or 7 months now? I think it, or maybe a little longer.
Yeah, we're coming up on a year, man. So Jake and I are both behind the scenes guys, right? We never wanted to be the guy, all in the video dancing. So it was a real shift, and that's part of the reason why we adopted the pseudonyms too. I did it for a couple reasons. One, I wasn't trying to be in the limelight, and two, like I said, having the job that I did at BET, I didn't want to put them in a bad position. I didn't want to put myself in a bad position, and so I wrote under a different name. And generally, everything we write is favorable because there's enough negativity out there. Why we cover negative when there's so much good stuff that's not getting shine? So we try and put a shine on only the good stuff. So I didn't have any problems like that. But so it was a real shift for us to step in front of the camera and actually put ourselves out there as Reggie Williams and Jake Payne. But it's been great. I stopped reading the comments a long time ago. Especially on Facebook and stuff, because there's just so much toxicity out there, and a lot of times it doesn't even represent the truth. It's the vocal minority. And an example of that is whenever we would post Drake, and I knew people didn't want to hear Drake singing, but if Drake is dropping a freestyle and spitting hot flame, dude, that was always one of the biggest articles we would have. But if you looked at the Facebook story, it was oh man, this is terrible, blah, 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 blah. But the clicks told a whole different story, right? So and it's the whole adage of there's people's social media avatar versus their search engine history. It's just completely different things. So I don't get caught up in the comments. I just try and be true to what I think the brand has become, true to myself. I try and provide some value. Jake and I have a lot of fun, and it is what it is, man. And we'll see how it progresses. But great reaction to this Jay-Z one. We have it on a lot of different platforms, and so the aggregate consumption is becoming very significant at this point. And so it's all for the love for me, man. And that's really what it's about. Do it for free. It's all for the love.
Right. You mentioned on that Protege podcast, you were adamant and reiterated, that you looked at AFH as being a network. So with that said, are there some to come with guys in the way that you'll be presenting video? Will it be more people in front of the camera? You know, are some of these things in the work, or will it remain as is?
Stay tuned.
Okay. Now, is Justin Hunt over there with you guys?
Yeah, Justin is he's extended AFH family. You know, he did a bunch of videos for us back in the day, and in fact, we were scheduled, he and I, to do. Jake had to miss a podcast, and he and I were scheduled to do one about a week or so together. Jake and I mean Justin and I, but he had to he had some travel plans. But yeah, he's extended family for sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
because I've seen him hop around a little bit, and then, like I said yesterday, I was snooping around on the site and I saw his name listed.
oh yeah.
And he's another one of my favorite voices. And again, that more mature, you guys almost approach hip hop. I mean, it's like CNBC or something, you know, but you're not talking about investments and savings and all of that type of stuff. And like I said, that just resonates for me.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I really do.
What would you, you know, it's been difficult for me to, I mean, gaining traction in doing this is one thing, but then just even on my website where I talk about boxing, it's been extremely difficult to land writers and retain writers. So, you know, what would you attribute your success to in forming this team? I know you spoke to this on the document that I said I read with you mentioning what the next move was. You credited everybody and talked about how some of those relationships were started and whatnot. But if you could share that here on my platform, because I need some help in that department.
Yeah, man. It's, you know, in a lot of ways, that's why I admire Griselda so much, because it's literally brick by brick, man. You know, there is no silver bullet. There's not going to be that one post that like changes everything for you. It is really just the body of work, you know, and it's just time and grind. You know, I did every single post on AFH myself, the first, like, you know, 3,000 or so, you know, by myself from years 2009 until 2013. It wasn't until 2013 that Jake joined, and that was like July, you know. And then Jake came on, it was just him and me, then Amanda, and then gradually we started building out. We had, you know, it's probably, I don't know, around 30 or so writers who, you know, come through the doors of AFH, and we had a stable of like 10 to 15 we worked with consistently all the way until we stopped doing the daily thing. You know, Amanda reached out because, like you, she had been reading since like, you know, 2010. It was like, yo, you gotta write those long ass headlines. I'm like, you know, what's going on here? Just thought it was curious, right? And then eventually she was like, yo, you know, reached out much like yourself, right, for this. And I was like, yo, do you want to write? And she's like, yeah, cool. And then, you know, she had a network, and then, you know, ultimately, you know, business started picking up, and Jake started to tap people, and often it was people who would be writing for other publications but weren't able to write about what they loved. You know, they had to write what was good business sense, but not necessarily what they loved. And so we became an outlet for people who really wanted to focus on the craft as applied to what they loved, you know. And so, man, it's just grinding. Man, that's all I can say. You just got to keep grinding, you know, be consistent, stay true to your voice. You know, check in, make sure you have a social media presence. You know, I don't know what your Facebook or Instagram or presence is, but like, you know, that's still a significant way to drive people and build community. And yeah, that's it, man. Just that's it. Just got to stay consistent and grind. And
Yeah, I think boxing, I was just saying, I think boxing is a different animal. But it's somewhat similar because everybody can be an expert on boxing just from watching it. Everybody can be an expert on hip hop from listening to it, or rap music to listening to it for all the, you know, for all those years. But there's some different dynamics in boxing that don't exist in rap music. That is just different. But I guess, you know, like you, from 2009 to 2013, how did you continue to believe in yourself and believe in your voice? Because like I said, I know what I do. I mean, I feel like I do dope work, and I don't know if you clicked on the link, but I actually do a boxing and hip hop column that I do on my website. I don't get it I don't get articles up weekly and not even monthly. So I like to be out working out and a song come on and there's a direct connection to either a fighter in, this in boxing, or a fight that's coming up. Somehow it needs to just snap and make it relevant and not go and tie them together. Because it's kind of a weird, if I came to you and said, "Hey Reggie, can I put a column on your on AFH with boxing and rap," you might be like, I don't know about that. So it's a bit weird, but like you said, I wanted to incorporate rap into my site. So that's what I did.
Yeah. I mean, the connection has been there. I mean, Tyson and Pac, walking out and like, it's been there for a long time. So I get it, for sure. And working out and all sorts of stuff. You should check out, do you know the name Andreas Hale?
I do. Because he was at Two Dope Boys, or
Two Dope Boys. Before that, he was I believe Hip Hop DX or Double XL or something like that. He's been at a lot of different places, but he also has been covered a lot of boxing too. So he is a person who's forged that path too. You ask about how did I continue. It's funny. I did a interview series called Grit. And it was with Big Crit, Rhapsody, Stally, Kendrick, maybe Schoolboy Q, and maybe a couple other people. But what I noticed about artists and working with so many artists over the years is, yes, they're talented. Many are incredibly like genius level smart. People don't understand there's like real genius there. But the thing that unifies all of them is that they did not give up. And most people like they think that, when they discover them that they're new, but it is almost a law that each of them has been around for at least 7 years, often 10 years, before even like the underground starts to really hear about them. And so how does a person sustain and keep grinding for 7 years when not only are you not getting traction, but everyone around you is detracting from your goals, your dreams, your vision? Like, why are you doing that? You're not like, and you're performing like, for 3 or 4 people. I saw Dizzy Wright perform once for like 5-10 people and was rocking it like it was Madison Square Garden, sold out. I've seen other artists like that who I didn't know, who I ended up putting on BET because I just loved that grind, and that was me. Like I said, for 6-9 months, I wrote for probably just myself and maybe 2 or 3 other people. My wife at the time didn't even look at it, like you gotta just believe in, we did, when I was at BET, we had BET Honors and we gave Barry Gordy a Visionary Award. And he got on stage and the first words he said was, "Being a visionary means proving to the world that you're not crazy." Because if you're trying to do something new, you got it in your head, it makes perfect sense, but it sounds crazy to the rest of the world. And so you just got to have patience and perseverance, man, to get through that. And that series Grit that I did, I asked them all the same like 7 questions about how they got through, and if they ever thought about quitting, and like all of them did at some point, and what got them through that. And so you just gotta like, and also like connecting with people who've done the grind before, listening to their music, all of it is, I think, is motivational to keep going.
Yeah, I tell you, man, from time to time, I'll maybe a week go by without me writing, maybe a week and a half or whatever, and or even doing videos, recapping fights and whatnot. And out the blue, I'll get a text message from somebody, and they're like, "Hey, I listened to your last podcast and the way that you did this," and I'm like, let me get back to the grind. So yeah, we hit those moments. Like I said, it's just been a little frustrating,
even notes like the note that you sent, like, and some of the stuff you said here is inspirational for me. You know, it's motivational for me. You know, so yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
I said I did a live stream last night. A partner of mine used to be my barber and now has founded a church. And he wrote his first book in December, and I wanted him to come on. It was about fatherlessness, and I wanted to talk about it on here. And like I said, the internet, it was the worst internet connection I've ever had, and I felt bad because I really wanted to drive home a lot of and expound on a lot of the points that he made in his book. And the first segment was okay, but once we got into the second segment and towards the end, you know, it really wasn't a good look for his brand, and I felt bad about that. But I'm gonna find a way to get back with him and do it properly. But it just pissed me off last night.
Yeah.
And see, it's funny because it had me down today about talking to you. Cause like I said, like you can't and you probably experienced this, you know, 4, 5, 6 years ago where you get that you needed and it doesn't, you know, it doesn't come out right, or technical difficulties or whatever. And you know, you hate to squander those opportunities.
Man, we've had interviews that were supposed to be recorded and weren't. So literally had to, like, you know, beg to like get to do it over again. We've had interviews at concert venues where the music was so loud you couldn't hear the person, and so instead of being video, it had to be a written article. Like, yeah, man, those setbacks come, but that's the thing. You just overcome, man. You just overcome.
Most interesting person, or you know, male or female, most interesting person that you interviewed. Can you share, or you feel like?
Wow, that's crazy. Man, I've interviewed so many people at this point, and so many are interesting.
Anybody like straight up surprise you?
You know what? I'll tell you, like, so at my first ever A3C, it was 2010. I'm going around and I've got my dude with the camera, and I'm trying to interview people for AFH. No one knows Ambrosia For Heads. I have my BET job, but I do not tell anyone about my BET job until after I've done the interview. And, you know, so they had to have agreed to have done the interview just on the strength of it. I got DJ Jazzy Jeff. That was amazing. You know, two huge surprises though were Murs, because Murs is just the nicest, like most humble, like most approachable dude ever. You know, like just incredible. And like, you know, we struck up a friendship based off that interview. Just a great dude. You know, and the other one was Stickman, because he just had such like crazy stories. You know, I didn't expect to like get the kind of time. And like, I asked people the same 5 questions, and the interviews would range in length from 2 minutes to 20 plus minutes. And Stickman was one of those 20 plus, like, you know, so those were, but yeah, but I can't say any were more interesting, or, you know, because we've gotten great content from so many different people. And I think a lot of it comes from just doing what you've done for this interview, doing your research, showing that you're invested, that you actually care about the subject, that you like are going to be thoughtful in your questions and your approach. I think that's what leads to a good interview. And when you do that, the person responds in kind, you know.
That's ironic you mentioned Stickman. I just had him on here 2 weeks ago.
That's great.
Actually, he wouldn't do a live stream. He said he didn't want to do a live stream. So we just did it audio. Yeah. And because he had a project that came out maybe last Saturday, or last Sunday. I'm sorry, the last day of February 28th. Yeah. He had a short film that he dropped. And yeah, and it was like, do I fight to try to convince him or explain to him the benefits of live streaming for his project, or do I just take what I can get and go with what he said?
And you do both. You fight, and then if you don't get it, you take what you can get. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. LL Cool J. Do you think that, and I don't know where you are with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or whatever it is, but I think he should be in there. Any thoughts on? I know Pac is in there.
Pac, Biggie, NWA,
Big,
Public Enemy. There's quite a few,
yeah.
rap artists in it now. Yeah, absolutely.
Doesn't
Absolutely,
LL need
LL
to?
should be. 100%. LL is like the first bona fide rap solo superstar. A first rap sex symbol, in my opinion. Like, his career went, went past this, but his prime was from 1985 until like 2001. He had a 16-year run. He had the first rap comeback. Like, he morphed from like that, more simplistic rhyme style to the more complicated rhyme style. He's the only rapper from that era to do that. Like, LL's a monster, man. LL is one of my goats for real, and absolutely should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I'm not a Tupac fan. I don't want to throw that out there because that's not it. But I've just kind of I just was kind of confused at how L got skipped over when I feel like Pac was obviously influenced by, like you said, the sex symbol side and leading man, all that type stuff. And I'm like, how can this man not get this get these types of flowers, these types of flowers before it's too late? But we'll see.
I think he'll get in. He should get in. But yeah.
I don't know, man. Just finishing up here. Let you get out of here. I know it's Friday night, but I don't know, man. Any artists on the cusp of breaking through? I mean, we mentioned Kendrick, and it's crazy that you have him up there. And so, you know what, man? I didn't listen to Good Kid, Mad City until this past summer. I started riding my bike for cycling, for exercise and whatnot. Okay. And I had never went back and listened to a Good Kid, Mad City in its entirety. And I had somebody told me what they thought about it, and I just kind of took them at their word. Love To Pimp a Butterfly, love Damn, and I just didn't go back. And I knew the singles off of Good Kid, Mad City. And then this year I was like, I had done all of Griselda's catalog and all the spinoffs and affiliates of Griselda. And I was like, man, let me check out this Good Kid, Mad City. Was blown away. And then I went back to Section 8.0 or whatever, 8.0.
Section 80, yeah.
Section 80. Yeah. And I'm like, all along this, but like I told you, there was that period of time coming off of my MBA where I just kind of lost interest in the game, and I just didn't connect back until To Pimp a Butterfly. But is there anybody that you see is kind of on? I know you mentioned Reason, but is there anybody, JID? Is there anybody that's kind of you're keeping an eye on Reason, to get in feel that lane?
Yeah, Reason makes me emotional, man. I love Reason. I was able to do a really fantastic interview of him. JID, those guys definitely. I'm opening up the playlist right now to see like who else. Toby and Wigway, I think is a phenomenal talent.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be. I think he has the potential to be like unbelievable. I'm going to say this: people might get mad, but Jack Harlow is like he can spit. The dude can spit. His NPR Tiny Desk was dope. His cipher was dope. Tyler Hero is dope. This guy's been around for a long time, but I think that the year he had last year was a renaissance for him and like set him into a whole different light, which is Boldy James.
Okay.
Last year's a big year for Boldy James. Luke from Dreamville is another dude who I think is unbelievable. Deontay Hitchcock is another one. And Nana, N-A-N-A from LA. He's really dope too.
Okay.
So that's just a few, that I think are on the come up. But I'm sure I'll think about more. But yeah.
I thought Harlow really stood out on the balancing act. He really And I got that the tiny desk. I got that saved as a watch later, so I'm gonna get to that.
Yeah, that's on time on the balancing act is fire. Yeah,
That was
yeah,
dope.
yeah.
Last question, man. I like I said, I know we both got things to do. I gotta cook something before my wife gets home from this thing.
Yeah.
Just what's your thoughts on right now? Like you said earlier at the beginning of this, we thought the game was a young man's game. Your quote from Benny, I actually think I remember reading that, to be honest. But what do you attribute the 3 to 35 and up? I mean, whether we go with Cole, Kendrick, Benny, and them guys are are in their 30s, Conway. What is it right now? And then just kind of like you said, the resurgence of Royce, Black Thought doing his thing. What do you think is driving all of that?
I mean, you got Nas, you got Jay, you got 2 Chainz, you got Rick Ross. Like so many guys are in their like 40s now, and even the young guys are like in their 30s. Like, man, it's just it's an older genre now. You know, rap's been around for 45 years or so. You know, and so you have now an entire generation that's grown up with them, with hip hop, and so. It's just big enough to allow for it. Just like rock and roll was a kid's thing until, you know, in the 60s. But now that it's like 60 years old, you got 70, 80-year-old rock fans. It's just, it's just grown out. And so it's never going to be a young person's thing again, exclusively a young person's thing. And I think that just like the rap music that we listened to in the 70s and 80s sounds nothing like the music now, even, the stuff that is called rap, 20 years from now will sound nothing like it does from now. It'll continue to redefine itself too, which is why it'll never die. Rap is not a static thing. It's an ever evolving thing. And that's a beautiful thing to me.
Got you. Actually lied, man. I'd be remiss if I didn't touch on these two things. I mentioned in the email that I sent you with the way that I thought Milestones by Skyzoo was such just an airtight project and incorporated a lot of the elements from some of the Griselda stuff and some of the more with the from movie snippets and the stuff that ran, and then just it was just a tight record. Well done. And then something like this new 13 project, Nice Day for an Exorcism or whatnot. And why do you think it's so hard for us on a larger scale to keep those types of projects in the rotation the way that, the Griselda stuff and even a Ransom had a good year? Why don't we, because I said in the email, back in the day, you went from De La to the Jungle Brothers to Pac, Digital Underground. Like, we seem to listen to so much more. I mean, is it just that we don't have the time for that nowadays?
Well, we listen to those things, but those things were listened to by us, right? Like the hip hop crowd, which was like back then, like 200,000 sales was gigantic. So if you think about it, probably only 50, 60,000 people were listening to those projects in earnest, like across the board, like that. And I would venture to say that most of those projects now are being listened to by at least that many people, probably even more so. So I think if we frame it in that perspective, like they're still doing, as we're still doing as well, as we were back then. But the other thing is that those are incredibly complicated albums, like Miles Skyzoo's album and Pharaoh's album or 13's album, and complexity has never equated to huge commercial success, or rarely, I should say. Which is why you got musical geniuses like Prince, and with all his success, he was, I think his music was more complicated than Michael Jackson's, and I'm not like placing more value on one or the other, but because of that, he didn't have the same level of commercial success as Michael Jackson, with the exception of Purple Rain. Right. Kendrick and Cole may not ever have the same level of commercial success as Drake, who has less complex music. but you know, they will have their core audiences and dedicated fans for years, and will be able to tour for the rest of their lives. And you know, that's really what it's about, you know. And I think that the Pharaoh's that same way. Skyzoo has a real strong core audience, and you know, everyone doesn't have to be a multi-platinum seller. Like if you can make a living doing what you love, it's good enough.
Got you. Well, I appreciate your time, man. Like I said, I continue to check in with you guys on the discussions that you have. I'm gonna stay tuned. You know, like I said, I've been spying on you guys. I'll pop into to some of the live streams, and I just think, you know, for one, like you just said, personally, it should be dope to be able to have such a thoughtful conversation with someone who cares about it. You know, about the topic as much as you guys do to one another. I was talking last year, I was visiting a coworker at his desk talking about different projects, and he's just one of those guys. He has a family and whatnot, wife, kids, and all of that. But I come back 2 or 3 weeks later. Hey, did you hear that album? Nah, man, I ain't even gonna lie, man. I ain't got to it yet.
Yeah.
And and one day I was like, you know what? I'm not bothering with my man no more. I'm gonna just start reviewing albums on YouTube. I'll send my I'll share my enthusiasm for these projects out here, you know, and I'll see if it's someone else out here that wants to talk about these albums in the same way. So that's kind of what I've been doing. And it's weird because, well, it's not weird, but it kind of like the chickens came home to roost this week. I was over on King Huspin's Instagram page yesterday or 2 days ago, and he chopped up part of my review and put it on his Instagram page.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And like you said, every once in a while you get this affirmation, you know, that what you're doing it resonated with somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, man. Yo, keep doing what you do, man. You're very well researched, very thoughtful in your approach. I appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity to be on your platform. Stay inspired, and yo, that's it, man.
Any just any last word for I can't be as good of a salesperson for Ambrosia for Heads as you. So just any final words to make sure that that people understand what the brand is about and, you know, what you guys are servicing.
Yeah, we celebrate hip hop from 1978 to the present. And, you know, our focus is probably on artists from the 90s and early 2000s, and then artists from the current day who reflect the values of those artists, lyrically, musically, content wise. We try to approach hip hop and give it the respect and love that it deserves. We try to do so, I think you've heard, on an intellectual level. And know that our audience can go there with us, and you know, really try to celebrate the culture. So tune in. Ambrosia For Heads, AFORHTV on YouTube, AmbrosiaForHeads.com, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And yeah, stay tuned.
All right. Appreciate you, man. I'm gonna let you get out of here, man. I know you got things to do, and hopefully we can link up in the future.
Yeah, for sure, man. All right. Good talking to you.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah.
Hey, so look, yeah, man, I can stop this. I'm doing a couple of things while I'm on here live streaming and whatnot. So like I said, this will be put up as an episode of It's Always Personal, which is just the audio only podcast. But I just wanted to talk, you know, I love hip hop, man. And it's great to talk to somebody like him. Like I said, looking into this man's first of all, that's the first person from Harvard that graduated from Harvard. And what's up, Jay Finn, man? I appreciate you stopping through, bro. When I realized that my man had 2 degrees from Harvard and Harvard Law, I'm sitting around in the bed last night when I laid down, and he had given me the you know, the okay that we were gonna rap. And then I'm like, well, damn, you know, I ain't never talked to nobody from Harvard before. Hell, for Jay Finn, I really haven't talked to too many people from Ohio State, or, you know, I haven't talked to too many people from the University of Michigan and whatnot. So in that respect, it was a little intimidating. But to be able to tap in with somebody that used to, because like I said, he was the senior vice president of something at MTV, and then the senior vice or the vice president of something at BET. And just like you said, he put together the ciphers. Actually, the ciphers was the only thing from the BET Awards. I didn't even watch the award because I didn't really care for all the artists that they, were that they had running for all of that stuff. I didn't really pay attention to none of them. But the ciphers, I would wait to the next day till the ciphers started popping up on YouTube, and I would just watch the ciphers. That was the meat of the show for me. So anyway, man, like I said, I just wanted to get him on. When I put the podcast up, it may be some other stuff that I put around his interview, although it went a little long, so I probably won't add a lot to it. But like I said, I just wanted to have those discussions. Somebody that's worked behind the scenes with the individuals that he has. Also, the questions about how do you listen to some of this music as you become an older man. You have a wife. I've been married almost 18 years. Some stuff I can only listen to when I'm at the gym, or if I'm traveling to and from fights and whatnot. It's something that keeps me up. If I'm driving back to Ohio, or from driving back to Dayton from Detroit, after some fight that I went to up there or something. So it's not a whole lot of hip hop that always really resonates with me where I am as a man. And I think as a young man at 16, 18, to listen to the artists that I did at that particular time, like I said, a lot of them inspired me to do certain things, certain positive things, and just kind of gave me a sense of myself, caused me to look up certain things, investigate certain things, explore certain things, and so on and so forth. I don't know if that happens a lot with the current artists and whatnot, but it is what it is. But anyway, like I said, man, I always appreciated Ambrosia For Heads. I knew it was a bit of a different site. And, you got the Hip Hop DX out there, World Star, a lot of the sites that just focused on the straight up gossip. And that was really what I was never about. So when I saw Ambrosia For Heads, I used to check it out pretty regularly. And then, like I said, to see them pop up on YouTube, it's like, damn, more competition, but I'm just kidding. Hey, let me get on off of here, man. For anybody that's on here that usually when I'm talking boxing and whatnot, great fights coming up tomorrow on Showtime Boxing. I believe that starts at either 9 or 10 p.m. Eastern time with Benavidez and Ronald Ellis, Isaac Cruz against Romero, and then the All Ohio battle with Gaché and Jamonte Clark. And then also over on the DAZN app, getting it in with Chocolatito and Juan Francisco Estrada. Phenomenal fight tomorrow. I can't wait to get to that one. So enjoy that. Also, you have McCaskill and Bracus, Cecilia Bracus on there. The Kiraguchi fight with I don't know what my man's name is, Vega or something. And then the young boys. I'm interested in seeing Ammo against Dennis Douglan, who's been in there with Charlo, Benavidez, a couple of other people. So that's a big step up for him. And then one of the prospects that I think we all should start taking notice of in Raymond Ford, southpaw out of Camden, New Jersey. He's going up against a guy who's like 11-0 with like 8 or 9, 10 knockouts or something. So I think top to bottom, it's going to be a very entertaining card. And I'm looking forward to all of it. Other than that, man, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thanks for the people that made some comments early on in the chat, asked some questions. I thought that was dope. I didn't really do any calling. Sunday morning, I should be on here late Sunday morning with the weekend wrap up of boxing. Talk about the cards. I'll throw the number up there if people want to call in and weigh in on what took place on either one of the cards. I'll do that. So probably get started around 10:30, maybe 10. But maybe I'll schedule that link tomorrow or something if I get some time. or you can always just hit that bell icon and be notified of whenever I do go live. I got inspired Wednesday night watching that Brandon Lee fight, that Brandon Lee knockout, third round of Samuel T. Jay Finney said, yeah, I thought it was cracking with the boxing talk. I'm still going to double back tomorrow too, though, if you go live. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. That's it, man. Let me get on off here. Like I always end these, man. You don't have to be great to start, but you had to start to be great.